Okay, Mr. Mayor, stand by. Stand by, Mayor, 10 seconds. You probably can't hear it, so stand by, 10 seconds. Okay, Mr. Mayor, stand by. You're on. Mr. Mayor, you're on.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the April 28th council meeting. It's another one of those meetings in the middle of the new normal, where we're all in separate places but gathering together through technology to conduct the business of the city. We're going to begin, even though we're separate, we are going to begin, as we always do, by asking God's grace on these proceedings. And I'm going to ask Councilor Thompson to, if she would, to please lead us in that prayer.
Thank you. Loving Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessings. And Father, we're asking for your help as we are gathered together. We pray for your guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with a spirit of joy, enthusiasm, clarity, and excellence. Give us the desire to find ways to excel in what we do. Help us to work together and to encourage each other to excellence. Father God, we ask that you would challenge each of us to reach higher and, Father, to be the best that we can be. Father God, we pray now for this pandemic. We pray for every family that has been affected. And Father God, we pray that at some point we know you will bring us to a place of normalcy. We give you all the praise, God. We pray now for our mayor, our city manager, the councilors. We pray for this city. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen.
Thank you, Councilor. And if you would, join me as we stand to our feet and recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation,
under God,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
That is arguably the more awkward aspect of what we do, and yet probably one of the most important things that we do. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the April 14 meeting. And don't forget to state your name as you make the motion of the second, please.
Valerie Thompson, move to approve.
Charmaine Crabbe, second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any member of council who does not approve the minutes? Okay, that passes unanimously. Next up is a quick update on COVID-19.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, please, if I can move forward with a roll call to have a record of who is present.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Please do that.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Allen. Mayor Pro Tem Allen.
Remember to unmute your microphone.
Here.
Councilor Barnes. Councilor Barnes. I believe he's present. Councilor Barnes. I believe he was present, Mr. Mayor.
City Council Pop Barnes.
Yes.
Yes.
Is now exiting.
Thank you, Councilor Barnes. Councilor Crabbe.
Present.
Councilor Davis.
Present.
Councilor Garrett.
Present.
Councilor House.
Here.
Councilor Huff.
Here.
Councilor Thomas.
Here.
Councilor Thompson.
Here.
And Councilor Woodson.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 10 members of council present for this meeting.
All right. Thank you. I'm sorry I skipped over that. A quick update on our COVID-19 situation here in Muskogee County. We currently have, as of this evening, we have 291 positive cases. The number of residents of Muskogee County that have lost their lives to this virus has gone up to 6. The Department of Public Health's website
City Council Pop Barnes.
says
Is
that there
now
are
joining.
51 positive cases hospitalized. Through our communication with the local hospitals, we think that number is closer to 40. And that's pretty significant because it means that we have not really surged in taking up hospital rooms in our hospitals, which means our resources are still available in the event we do have a spike or an outbreak somewhere. The governor's newest order is an effort to begin to incrementally kind of open up the state's economy. Last Friday, opened up businesses like spas, salons, gyms. There were a number of different nail salons and barbershops and things that opened, but they opened under some pretty strict conditions. And I have to say that the few that I have been able to observe as they've opened their stores back up are doing a remarkable job of following those conditions and making sure that they're wearing a mask, their customers wearing a mask. Effective yesterday, restaurants could open, but under some pretty strict guidelines. And in fact, a number of restaurants in the Muskogee County area have elected not to open just yet. The shelter-in-place order is still in effect through Thursday midnight, which is the 30th of April. After that expires, the governor has asked that individuals over 65 who have pre-existing conditions with regards to asthma or hypertension or any other underlying conditions continue to shelter in place. The message from our office has remained consistent. That is that the way we have helped flatten our curve and hold down the numbers of people who are in hospitals is because we have stayed close to home. It's because our residents have fought back with the one weapon they have, and that's themselves, and that was keeping themselves distanced, using masks when they go out in public. So we would urge them to continue to do that for the foreseeable future, as we continue to try to make sure that we do as much as we can to stop the virus from spreading. At this point, if any counselor has a question, I don't know that I can answer it, but I'll do my best.
Councilor Huff.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to, with your updates and everything, I had a phone call today that I referred to your office based upon people wanting to get out in their neighborhoods and their rec centers and things in their neighborhood. So is the rule is they still can go out, they just need to stay 6 feet apart?
They can, but the city government facilities are still closed.
Okay.
Rec centers are still not operational. And that's in keeping with our belief that if we have a venue that attracts larger crowds, basketball games, things like that, we're going to hold off right now. The target is the 15th of May. We're going to give it another two and a half weeks. But yes, they can get out of their house. Public parks are open. The facilities within those parks, playground equipment, things of that nature, we've asked them to still kind of steer clear of.
Okay, and a homeowners association in their communities, are they able to do basically the same thing except they make the rules, or we following our rules, your rules?
No, we're following the governor's rules. That is, they
Okay.
have a homeowners association. They have a community room or some community building. They can utilize that provided that they keep the social distancing. Now, I will tell you that in his order, public pools are still ordered closed. They are not allowed to open just yet through this order, which extends, I believe, I think it's through the 13th of May. But yes, other than that, they're welcome to go outside. They just need to make sure they're following the social distancing because that is a part of his order.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Thomas. Do we have any idea in Columbus of how many of our restaurants opened or how many of our other businesses that were allowed to open actually did did open?
I can give you some anecdotal answers, but I can't give you a firm count because we really don't know how many went back to full service on dine-in service for their patrons. But I'd say about half of the restaurants that we have seen have reopened, but they've done a great job. I saw a couple that are really being intentional about keeping people separated, even sitting them at tables. They're taking people's temperatures as they come in the door, make sure they don't have a temperature of more than 104. Now, I think the salons, the nail salons, the barbershops, the hairstylists, tattoo artists, I think a much greater percentage of those individuals have reopened. But again, we don't have a full count.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right. If there's no other questions, we'll move on to the budget presentation. Most of you, I hope, have received your budget books. Have you? Not yet.
No.
No,
Okay.
no.
I don't know if the city manager is on. I'm not sure when they're supposed to be delivered. I guess you should get them tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'll give you, what I'm gonna do is I'll read you just a little brief piece at the very beginning, and then I'll touch on some of the highlights, as it were. This is just like everything else that we're doing through this pandemic. It's the first time we've done almost everything in the way in which we're doing it. Unprecedented is a term we've heard a lot lately to describe the unique events and atmosphere that have accompanied the coronavirus known as COVID-19. All of our thoughts and efforts have been focused on doing whatever's necessary to keep our residents as safe as possible. The good news is our citizens have worked hard to comply with restrictions, distancing recommendations, and even shelter-in-place orders in order to keep our curve relatively flat. We have not been hurt nearly as much as some of the other communities throughout Georgia and throughout the country. Bad news, however, is these actions have come at a cost to the budgets of the business community, philanthropic community, our residents, and our government. There's just so many things we don't know right now, like how long before things get back to normal. We don't even really know what normal is going to look like. Will social distancing become a staple of life? Will masks become a fashion accessory? Will hand sanitizer become common on every corner and every checkout counter? We wrestle with other questions too, like how deep will revenues drop? How long before they recover? How much of our reserve fund balance will be needed to finish this year and balance the fiscal year 21 budget? Staff has recommended very conservative assumptions that should allow us to navigate this financial hardship. Our hope is revenues will rebound more quickly and we'll be able to consider mid-year budget assumptions to address known capital needs. Given our current situation and an uncertain path to recovery, it is going to be more critical than ever as a community that we do everything we can to patronize and protect our local businesses. Our success, frankly, depends on their success. As we look to get our business community actively engaged in commerce again, we know that it's going to be completely different. And the hard part for us is we really don't have anything to compare this to. Staff has gone back to the recession of 2008 that was as deep and as long as any recession we've had in history. But even that is a completely different animal. That was led by real estate. This is something that is caused entirely by a germ. We don't really know what we can expect. We're very, very hopeful that the momentum that Columbus has displayed over the last couple of years will prevail and that we will come out of this financial situation a little quicker. I'm going to tell you a couple of highlighted things that we did manage to keep in this budget, because this budget is very austere. We protected our fund balance because, frankly, we don't know how much of it we're going to need to get through the few months where we've had really low sales and low sales tax revenue, and how much it'll take to get over the hump as we move into FY21. So we've budgeted some capital purchases, but we have delayed them until mid-year. hope is by then we'll have been able to observe how our revenues are flowing, how quickly we're getting back to sort of a normal plateau for Columbus, and then make those decisions at mid-year. We did focus on some necessary safety items, like additional turnout gear and the reductors to decontaminate them for fire and EMS. These were some items that were desperately needed to make sure that the folks that are taking care of our citizens are taken care of. We worked to hold insurance premiums without an increase again this year. It was important to us not to add any extra burden to our employees. We also continue to emphasize the elimination of substandard housing. You know, we put $1 million in the budget last year. Obviously, that's not going to happen this year. We had hoped for $500,000, but what we ended up with is $250,000, which is still 500% more than what we've had in years prior to FY20. We have also budgeted, despite the concerns over the coming year, we have also budgeted for a 2% cost of living adjustment for all employees to take effect January 1st. We would have loved to make it effective in June, but the current financial situation just frankly does not allow. So we're very focused on trying to take care again of the people who take care of our citizens. The recommended budget is balanced, $461,642, which represents a decrease of 1.52% from the budget last year. Again, our hopes are that as we move forward and as we get closer to mid-year, following the request of the budget chair, that we be able to take a much deeper dive into mid-year budget adjustments and make up some ground if in fact our revenues are tracking where we not only think they might, but certainly where we hope they will be. You all will get your books. I'd hoped you'd gotten them today, but you will get them tomorrow. And at that point, if you have any questions or any concerns about the budget, I look forward to addressing them as we go through the budget hearings.
Mr. Mayor, can you tell us how we're going to get those? How are those books going to be delivered to us?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If I may, sir?
Yes.
I'm going to ask the Finance Director, Angelica Alexander, to unmute and talk about the link that they're going to get momentarily. And then those who desire books will get books tomorrow. And
I will say, Councilor Thomas, if for those that desire books, if I have to put them in my car and bring them to you, you'll get them tomorrow.
Well, Mr. Mayor, that won't be necessary, but
at a good social distance, though, right?
That's right. I'll pull my old paper route technique. I'll throw it in the front yard. How about that?
So with that, Mr. Mayor, I do want the Finance Director to unmute and talk about the link that will be provided tonight and books for those who desire books delivered tomorrow.
Okay.
Finance Director, will you please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the City Manager mentioned, I am in the process as we speak. I just didn't want to send it out prematurely before the mayor presented the budget to you all. But within the next 5 minutes or so, you all should receive a link. This link contains all of the documents that are typically provided to council via the jump drive. It includes all of the budget requests that we have from the various departments and elected officials. It also includes an electronic copy of the recommended budget book in its entirety. That document is also being published as we speak to the CCG homepage under the popular resources section. It is also available on the Finance Department's website. And as the City Manager mentioned, for the ones that desire books, We'll have those delivered tomorrow. For everyone else, when we meet physically, we'll most certainly have a book if you are still in need.
All right, thank you, Angelica. And I apologize. You probably told me that, and I just completely forgot that they would get the link. All right. All right. Well,
Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but I did want the finance director to talk about budget review.
Okay.
Sure.
Dates and how that will go.
I do apologize.
No, that's on me.
Yes, so as the city manager mentioned, the budget review schedule will also be displayed on the link that you'll receive tonight momentarily. But the first budget review session is scheduled for next Tuesday, May 5th. It's scheduled to begin at 2 p.m. This would be before the proclamation meeting. Obviously, the vehicle that we will use will be Microsoft Teams, so it'll function very much like our council meetings in terms of how that meeting will be conducted. Currently, what's on the schedule for the meeting next week is obviously an overview of the budget by myself. And then also we have our benefits consultant, NFP. They will be joining us to provide a healthcare update as they typically do during this time. So that is on for the 5th. That's May 12th is the next scheduled date. That will immediately follow the council meeting or begin at 12 p.m., whichever one comes first. The budget review sessions will begin at 12 or immediately following the council meeting on May 12th. Then May 19th, that is a standalone session strictly for budget review, scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. And it'll be department presentations that will occur. Currently, there are none on the schedule for the 12th or the 19th, but I would imagine once the budget is posted online and we're in the process of sending out all of the recommended departmental summary sheets to all of the departments, they'll have those by tomorrow morning. I would imagine for the ones that want to come to council, they'll reach out to me and let me know what date and time. And the last budget meeting that we have scheduled is May 26th. It's prior to our night meeting in May. It also is scheduled to begin at 2 p.m. And on that day, we'll go over the add delete list if there are any items to review.
All right. I want to make sure I went in.
Ms. Alexander,
quick question. I
excuse
thought
me,
we
what
had.
time on the 26th?
2 p.m.
Thank you.
All right. Now we had canceled the proclamation meeting, so we've changed it to business meeting. Is it?
I'm sorry, I didn't. Were you speaking to me?
I'm sorry. I know we had originally canceled the proclamation meeting. Did we change that to a business meeting for the purposes of presenting the update or the budget process?
Well, the budget review meeting was just prior to the proclamation meeting. So if the proclamation meeting has been canceled, then it will just still do the budget review at 2 p.m.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I did just want to call attention to that resolution that's listed on the clerk's agenda to cancel the May 5th proclamation session. And so that will be listed for council to vote on.
Okay.
This evening.
All right, but we can still have the meeting prior to that for budget purposes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Ms.
Mr.
Alexander,
Mayor,
anything?
this is Councilor Huff. We would
Yes.
request the budget book this evening, or should we send Director Angelica Alexander an email?
Probably be better just send her an email.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Alexander, anything else?
No, sir. You can just reply to the email that I'm about to send.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Next, we'll move on to the city attorney's agenda. Mr. City Attorney.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. We have a few business items to get a vote on this evening. The first one up is the ordinance that would extend the licensing deadlines, business license renewal, occupation tax until June 1st, and provide for the continuation of emergency procurement contracting through May 30th. And that is ready for a vote. It can be adopted on one reading at this time.
Move approval.
Approval.
All right. Who made the motion? All right.
Allen.
Okay, House second.
Mayor Pro Tem and Councilor House made a motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any member of council who is opposed to approving it? All right, it passes unanimously.
That passes. Item 2 is a resolution that would designate the Columbus Civic Center and the Trade and Convention Center as additional available courthouse facilities for state court proceedings during the period May 13 through July 3rd, 2020, unless further extended. And that's just for mainly state court arraignments on Fridays, but any necessary hearings where they might need a facility.
Councilor Garrett, move for approval.
House second.
All right, there's a motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any member of council who is opposed to the motion? All right, it passes unanimously.
All right, and then the last item, Mayor, we've got a resolution that's amending the city 457B deferred comp plan. This is requested by the Deferred Compensation
Second.
Committee. Wait, I want Ms. Shefstall to unmute if she can and just explain this real briefly, Mayor.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. This resolution is a proposal to make a second plan amendment to the deferred comp plan, which CCG sponsors for its employees, so they can choose to have part of their pay withheld to contribute toward a retirement savings investment account. No CCG funds are contributed to this plan, but the Internal Revenue Code has many provisions which restrict the way funds are handled in these plans, and typically an employee's access to the funds short of retirement is heavily limited or penalized. However, the recent CARES Act, because of the corona crisis, had contained 3 provisions which are designed to make it easier for people to access their savings in their deferred comp plans during this period of emergency. The options include distributions, loans, and required minimum distribution waiver provisions. So essentially, the first proposed change, which you have to approve these changes because the federal law does not make them. We have to make them into our own plan once they're permitted by the federal law. So that's why we're here tonight to do this. Anyway, the first corona-related plan allows any participant to take penalty-free withdrawals not to exceed $100,000 from their retirement account this year if they certify that they have a COVID-19 related financial emergency. Normally, they wouldn't be able to do this. And the second, they can have the option of borrowing against their account up to 100% the value of the account, or $100,000. And also, the CARES Act recommends that all required minimum distributions for those over age 70 be excused for this whole year. And then finally, there is one housekeeping matter we need to take care of while we're amending the plan, which is to phase in the new ages for required minimum distributions that were approved last year by the federal act setting every community up for retirement enhancement, or SECURE Act. And that simply means that by over time, our employees will not have to withdraw mandatory minimum amounts from their funds if they choose to leave them in and before they're 72. And the Deferred Comp Board met on April 16th, thoroughly discussed these 4 plan options and voted to recommend them to you all tonight. So we're simply presenting that to you to approve the amendments. And the chairman of our board is Forrest Tully and Retha Hollowell. They're also available online if you have any further questions.
Alan moves approval.
House second.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes,
Lucy,
Yes,
is
ma'am.
this only for the fiscal year, or what is the term of these changes?
It's for the year, the calendar year 2020 is the way it's described in the federal law.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we had a motion by Mayor Pro Tem and a second by Councilor House. Is there any further discussion or any more questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there any council that's opposed to this resolution? It's unanimously passed.
All right, that ends the regular business items. Mayor, we do need an executive session later on at the end of the regular council meeting to discuss real estate acquisition and disposal, litigation, and personnel. But that's
Okay.
all we had listed for now.
All right, any questions of the city attorney? All right, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to you and the members of council, the city attorney, and all on this meeting. I've got a few items on my agenda. The first item is requesting that the city accept a Liberty Theater. This Liberty Theater acceptance request is on my agenda at the request of District City Councilor Mimi Woodson and Councilors Pop Barnes and Valerie Thompson, after written request from the chairman of the Liberty Theater Board and board members of the Liberty Theater. We all know that the Liberty Theater is a historic African-American facility with the mission of promoting African-American heritage, cultural, and intellectual activities for the benefit and enjoyment of all who live in Columbus and those who visit our city. The Liberty Theater is currently in a state of disrepair, and it will cost an estimated $3 million to repair and revitalize the facility based on a recent assessment requested by former Mayor Pro Tem Evelyn Turner Pugh. Before Mayor Pro Tem Pugh retired, she requested that we do an assessment of repairs needed and look at the feasibility of the city taking over the management and operation of the Liberty Theater. The findings in the assessment of repairs needed include major roof issues, severe water damage, the fire alarm and fire protection systems are not in working condition, the HVAC units are at the end of their useful life, electrical system repairs are needed, the theater lighting and AV systems require replacement. Kitchen renovation is needed. Interior and exterior improvements are needed, and other items. The Liberty Theater is simply in a state of disrepair. Revitalization is necessary, and necessary now to preserve this historic structure from further damage and deterioration. We have learned that there are grant opportunities available to the Liberty Theater if the facility is owned by the city. As city manager, I recognize and acknowledge the Columbus Consolidated Government's current financial dilemma as a result of the current unprecedented pandemic. We must prepare for the difficult financial challenges ahead for the CCG as a result of the pandemic and weigh the decision: accept the Liberty Theater, not accept the Liberty Theater, or accept the facility with conditions and understanding up front. If the decision is made to accept the facility, total revitalization will not be immediate, but in phases. We would need to first secure the facility to protect it from further damage by dealing with the roof. Then we would be able to focus on the interior of the building and system replacements. In other words, the facility would not be usable immediately. We would need to immediately and aggressively secure the grants available right now, and then look for other grant opportunities and other outside funding support from stakeholders, the private sector, and others. Though it would be challenging, I believe we can be successful if the facility is accepted by the city. But I want to be clear, it would not be easy and it would not be immediate, and I'm not prepared to provide a timeline tonight. The timeline would need to be determined. It did not get in its current condition overnight, and it would not be revitalized and made ready for use overnight. With that said, if the decision is to accept, it would cost approximately $3 million to stabilize and revitalize the Liberty Theater over a period of time, and revitalization would be done in phases over a period of time to be determined. Once revitalization or revitalized, the annual operating budget is projected to be $150,000 to $200,000 annually for direct expenditures, plus additional pass-through expenditures. The expectation is that programming would offset the expenditures once the facility is available for rental and programming. The facility would be programmed and managed by the existing staff of the Civic Center, as I've said before, with the possibility of adding one event coordinator position. If an event coordinator position is added, this person would not be added to run the Liberty Theater, but as additional support staff for the Civic Center and taking on the operations and added responsibility of the Liberty Theater. There are immediate funding opportunities available to start the stabilization and revitalization effort. There's a $150,000 DCA grant, and the status of that grant is to be determined. There's a $50,000 Fox grant. The status of that grant is to be determined. And then we have $740,000 of Liberty District Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax funds that could be used to support stabilizing the facility. The priority for the Liberty Theater would be maintain the historical and cultural significance of the theater, have City Council to appoint a Liberty Theater Advisory Board, continue the Liberty Theater brand, use Liberty Theater letterhead, provide the Liberty Theater its own telephone number, Liberty Theater social media site, Liberty Theater website. We would link the Liberty Theater and Civic Center websites for easy access to information. Contracts for the Liberty Theater would be between the Liberty Theater and client. All ticketed events would be handled through Ticketmaster, no different than with Civic Center events. The city would not assume responsibility for any outstanding liabilities of the Liberty Theater. And I'll repeat that. The city would not assume any responsibility for any outstanding liabilities of the Liberty Theater. In other words, the city will not accept responsibility for any debt or expenses incurred by the Liberty Theater or on behalf of the Liberty Theater prior to the city signing final documents accepting the Liberty Theater, unless approved under the authority of the city manager. When you, Mayor, took office, you made it clear to me as city manager. You said to me, I want my administration to focus on how to get things done when a request is made by citizens, rather than saying no or figuring out how not to get it done. I believe that we can figure out how to get this done. We have bright minds. We are working with a person who certainly has the ability in the Liberty District Chairman to help get things done if it's accepted by the city. And so we, in my mind, can get it done. And so Mayor and Council, pending your questions, I will yield to District Councilor Mimi Woodson and then to Councilors Pops Barnes and Valerie Thompson, because they requested that I bring this matter before you tonight on my agenda. And so, Mayor, I want to yield to the District Councilor Mimi Woodson at this time.
All right, Councilor Woodson.
Hello, Mayor. Thank you very much, City Manager Isaiah. Excuse my voice if it comes and goes. I'm having some couple health issues, but I did ask Isaiah to put it back on the agenda, and my reason is that I would receive the call asking if we would please consider putting it back on the agenda for consideration. The reason I did it, I know there's a lot of concerns, a lot of questions, and I'll let each of my colleagues discuss or say what they want to say. One condition that I would like to put on this request of approval is that Representative Calvin Smari be part of the fundraising, and he will meet with the private sector to do a private partnership to ensure the success and reopening of this historical site. I'm asking this because every time we're going to do something for the Liberty District, something always happens that we never get anything done there. This is an opportunity. I know some have said the financials or some of the other things that are going on with the Liberty District. To me, that is not something that we need to get involved. I think what we need to know is what actually are the problems. We know the problems. How will we be able to fix it if we can? I understand we have the coronavirus. I understand that we have a difficult time right now with the budget. The city manager was able to show where there's some funding that we can get started, but applying for grants and getting that private partnership, I think we can, I feel confident we can do it. Here's another reason why I'm so in support of it. Not so much, it gives an opportunity for smaller venue for our citizens to use. It's a good property so that the arts in our community has an opportunity. I'm going to use an example, but I'm not going to name names because I don't want to put anyone in a position. I know there was a dinner theater that happened over last summer. They had to rent an area what was very expensive, and they had to limit it. So the performance could have been better, could have been more participant if they had a better venue. There are a lot of venues that people try to get, but it's too expensive. This will give an opportunity for a venue for people to use for weddings, for family gatherings that wouldn't be as expensive. It won't be competing with others, but it will give our community an opportunity to use. The arts, there are so many people out there that need to practice, that put on their own independent plays. For example, example, I saw on 12th Street, one in Broadway, one of the buildings, there was a group of people there. The mayor, the gentleman, was one of the people that spoke. I had a dream and what the dream can do for us. I've seen him always go over there to practice. And I asked him why. He said there was nowhere else to go. He would say, well, we're trying to see a place where we can do our play. Well, this gives an opportunity. And I know this city, when it wants to do something and it agrees, I know the city comes together. I'm not saying we're going to do this tomorrow, but I think we do need to preserve Black history. And in that area, everything's being teared down, everything's being done. Everyone says what they want to do. Everyone is saying what they're going to do, but nothing's been done. This gives us an opportunity to preserve some history, that theater, and give something for the community. I feel very confident that funding will come from the community. And I feel very confident that Representative Calvin Smari will work on that to help us to succeed it. So I would like to hear everything that my colleagues are asking, but I would like, if possible, a vote. And the vote can be a vote to accept it with conditions. If these conditions are not met, then we will not fall in agreement to take the Liberty District Theater. The city manager can come back and tell us if all the requirements, all our questions were met, and it will be done completely. I understand there's a lot of different variables out there and different conversations, but right now the only conversation that I'm concerned about is the building itself, is preserving history, opportunity for other artists out there that don't have all the means. They can do some, but not all, have the ability to use that facility. So much can be done if we have the right staff and the right people in place. And I feel confident our Civic Center and our staff can make it work. I feel confident that they will find the money. And I'm asking and I'm pleading to my colleagues, let's finally get something done in the Liberty District. Ask your questions. Let's put some conditions to get our answers so that we can go ahead and accept this building. Thank you, Mayor, for this opportunity.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody else have any comments?
I think
Yes,
Pops
Councilman
was
Barnes.
following.
Councilman Barnes?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Now, you know, I'm having difficulty. You know how I am with this thinker, but you know, I think I verbalized last time my concern that this, I feel, is an opportunity to be able to have a landmark to save the Liberty Theater. All of us know who have been on council for any period of time have seen the deterioration over the years of the Liberty Theater. And it is a huge concern because this is very important to a huge segment. Saving the Liberty Theater is extremely important to a huge segment of the population here in Columbus. And coincidentally, I'd like to share something. Since we brought this subject up, I have heard from a number of citizens, and not only African American citizens, who realize that the history of African Americans in the Liberty Theater is an integral part of Columbus's history. And they've also verbalized to me the need for us to recognize that the only way that the Liberty Theater really is going to be saved is if the city is a part of it. The dean of the state representatives, Calvin Smari, called me, and he asked for my vote, realizing that there's going to be a number of people who are going to think that investing in the Liberty Theater is not important enough or to the history of Columbus. Can we put the city manager, Jeremy, can we put the city manager's, activate his video? Anyway, I've had conversations with the city manager. The city manager, Isaiah Hughley, has been a city manager for a very long time, and he has managed us through to keep this city solvent through the Great Recession. And I spoke with Isaiah, and I've asked Isaiah, is it possible for us to manage? And the city manager just laid out the roadmap for us, saying that it would not be easy, but he can do it. And the city, Isaiah, how long have you been the city manager of the city of Columbus, Georgia?
15 years.
And Isaiah, let me tell you, through the 15 years that you have been the city manager, you have cautioned us on the decisions of spending that I know you had us at 90 days. You, the city manager, you don't make the decisions of spending it. You go on what council advises you to do. And you have kept this city afloat during some arduous times just by your experience, your knowledge, and your judgment. And one of the things I asked you in conversation is that, can we make this happen? The Liberty Theater, you just outlined a roadmap for us. And I will ask my fellow councilors to go to the history, your history as a city manager, your 15 years of keeping this city afloat, managing the city, your knowledge, and the city employees that you rely on. This is our one opportunity to save a very valuable part of the history of Columbus, Georgia. And I'm asking my fellow councilors to support this here, to support this initiative to save the Liberty Theater. That's it, Mr. Mayor. That's my take.
Okay, this is Councilor Thompson, and I also received a call from Representative Calvin Smiley. I have lived in this city most of my life, except for when I left for school. And I understand the history of the Liberty District and the Liberty Theater. City Manager Isaiah Hughley, he answered some of the questions that I had, and one was about an advisory board so that we can put other people on this board that will be able to help us make some decisions. I think we need to be transparent, and I keep saying that in what we're doing. One thing that the community is saying is that we have not been transparent. My phone has been ringing off the hook about what's going on with the Liberty. The Liberty has set for many, many years to get in the condition that it is in. And I am for the city taking it and doing what we can, but also getting funds from private sectors and grants. And I feel that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments?
Councilor Huff.
Councilor Huff.
Can you hear me? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I've heard from everyone, but one point I heard earlier about the citizens calling all over to talk about it. I'm getting numerous phone calls. The citizens are screaming loudly that they have not had a chance to meet, talk about it. Some of the people that were on the Citizens Advisory Board, the times had been changed at some point. I did mention that to council in the past that it had been changed from 5:30, 5:30, 6 o'clock to noontime. They couldn't make the meetings, so it's kind of like the committees and things were put together to move the agenda the way they wanted it to move. They are screaming that they have had no input. They are screaming that they listened to me at the March 9th meeting, request an opportunity to get into the Liberty and talk about what was going on and to see it and get some quotes and things of that nature. Was unable to enter the facility at all in this period of time. Private investors to return it back to the people. It's thought that going forward, the time frame to complete it is the same whether it's a city or a private investor. Whether it's 24 months, 18 months, 24 months, whatever it is. The people would like not only an advisory board, but a new advisory board. Who would pick up the debt, which I think the city manager, someone mentioned. The private investor said the same thing. Is not willing to pick up any debt of the Liberty at this point in time, but he's willing to let them take care of their debt and make that zero out in order to come in cleanly and take the property over. I do have a question when I finish as far as the DCA monies and things with the budgets being the way they are now with the state. I don't know if the state's going to be able to find that money or not. Maybe they will, but I think things are going to tighten up at that level. The Liberty Theater sits in a TAD district, and it was brought to my attention in some of the TADs that we're working on at this point in time. Other TAD districts, the developers have been able to come in and look at the properties and assess the properties and find out what needs to be done, and then they would come back and let us know what they think that cost would be. And we're being told that it's a $3 million renovation and and that's based on the people that the city will be working with at this time. The group that I'm working with has not had the opportunity to come in and take a look at all. It seems to be a well-rehearsed play. Everybody has learned their lines, and I just don't understand what's going on. So I keep asking the question, why? Why was it that, you know, council was generous enough to give me time to go in and get the numbers together, but for some odd reason, I didn't get a chance to walk in at all and see it, you know, never could get in. Some of the things they talked about today as far as the branding and things of that nature, you know, Facebook and all of that, that's going to be done regardless of whether it's the city or a private investor, just because of the times we live in. We're right now, you know, on Microsoft Teams. So it's obvious that technology will be a part of everything that you do going forward. So from March 9th to April 28th, I've had no access to the theater at all. The citizens that called are from all walks of life, all races of life, and wanted to understand what the rush is, and if conditions are being given to the city and others to move ahead on this deal, why would the private investors not be given the same opportunity to at least take a look at it and have the same conditions placed upon them? But I do have to address the point of, because I had this conversation this morning. It was brought to my attention, you know, that every time we get to this point, we talk about the Liberty Theater has not moved forward because opportunities have availed themselves and no one was able or ready to take advantage of them. So it's just sitting there with nothing going on. So from March 9th to April 28th, there's an investor and another person other than the person that everyone may know or may not know interested, and there's been no opportunity to access the facilities. So that part itself was, there's something that needs to be done. It's a TAD district, and in the TAD definition, the but for is in there, and you know, there's been no opportunity to give this investor a chance to go in and take a look at it and to address the but for statement with it being a TAD district. So, you know, I'm asking the council to chime in and let me know if I'm wrong at this point for wondering why the citizens don't have time to be talked to, why no private investors are being given an opportunity to address it. And if it could not be done, you know, the city would know about it in plenty of time. So for now, I'll be quiet for right now, but I don't get the big hurry right now that the city could go in and take on more debt. at this time, and that the fact that we don't get an opportunity to secure the premises as far as the rooftops and things of that nature. It's just, I'll yield at this point to listen in for a minute. I may chime back in. Thank you.
Councilor Barnes here. Mr. City Manager, I know that even through this pandemic, that you've been readily available by phone or email, because I personally had a couple of the citizens contact you. So I know that from March 9th until the present, that if anyone was interested, that I can't imagine any reason that would prevent them from contacting you or alerting you to this, because one of the things that you've made clear all along, even when we had the delay requested by Councilor Huff, is that the one thing that you're interested in is retaining and repairing and keeping the history, the building of the Liberty District and the Liberty District area. Is that correct? You've always been available.
I have always, you're right, I have always been available, and I know that it has come up a couple of times about where Councilor Huff has indicated he made a phone call to the Liberty Theater and left messages and did not get return calls. And I said to Councilor Huff, I said, of course, I know that you know Calvin Smiley, and I know that you know he's the chair of the board. And I recommended that Councilor Huff call Calvin Smiley. And then I also told Councilor Huff that Shay Anderson is the executive director, and I know that he knows the father, Robert Anderson, and I suggested maybe he should call one of them, and so because they would be the ones with keys to the door and would be able to let him in. And so it sounds like there's a disconnect between Councilor Huff and Representative Calvin Smiley. And I'll be happy to facilitate the two of you meeting if there needs to be a facilitator, but I know that you have a relationship with him just like I do and everybody on this call. So I know that he could probably help you with your concern, Councilor Huff.
Okay, at this point, let me say this. I did finally get a return call to my office from Shay Anderson. And in returning my 2 phone calls, I called her back twice and I never heard back. And in my conversation with Representative Calvin Smiley, our discussion was that the board met, the board made a decision, and the board was not entertaining any private investors or anyone coming in to view the facility because the board decision had been made.
Well, and of course I can't comment on that, but and my understanding is that the board made a decision in the direction they would like to see this go. And I'm here today to tell you, Councilor Barnes has said it. You know, the theater is a historical, cultural center for that you know needs to be preserved, and I'm watching it day by day deteriorate. And if we don't do something and do something quickly, it's going to continue to rain in that facility, and it's going to further deteriorate, and it's going to cost more to get it done. And I have no idea who your private investors are, and I don't know if you shared that with Representative Smiley. You know, that's something I can't facilitate, but I can tell you that I've studied this, I've looked at it, and I think that we have some immediate resources that we can secure that building to minimize any further deterioration. And we need to do it, and we need to do it now. And I don't know how long your deal, if there's a deal with private investors, will take. But that's a decision that Chairman Calvin Smiley and his board has to make. They cannot be made to sell or deal with a private investor if that's not the direction they want to go. And so I'm going to have to leave that with you and Representative Smiley.
Yeah, that was made very clear that it was a board decision, but it didn't take very long from March 9th up until about probably 2 weeks later. I could have had a decision because I promised you, the mayor, city attorney, the council, everyone, and the citizens that I would get everything together and come back. And if the city and the board were interested in dealing with the private investors, that I would come forward and let you all know who all the players were and how it would work out. There's no sense in divulging who the players are if we can't get in the building.
Well, Councilor Huff, I'm going to have to leave that with you, and I can only present to you a plan that I've worked with my staff on that we can move forward if approved by council right now, and we can do it without it being a burden on the city with the funding that we know that we have in hand. And then with Representative Calvin Smiley and others in the community, we can work with them to secure additional grants and private sector funding. And I know that it has been mentioned that about the DCA grant, and I just received a text from Representative Smiley that says from DCA Commissioner Christopher Nunn, and there's a quotation. It's in quotes. No money has been deobligated. In quotes, this should be no issue. And that's from DCA Commissioner Christopher Nunn, if that helps with any question about the $150,000 grant. And let me just say, we all know that Representative Calvin Smiley, we don't need to get into the relationships, but he has relationships in the city, outside of the city, and in Atlanta. And when there were questions going around about the $150,000, there was no question in my mind that he could make a phone call and straighten that out. And he just demonstrated that. And I'm saying to you that if the city accepts this, I know that Representative Smiley will be there to support us in Columbus, in Atlanta, and other places. The critical decision that has to be made is how much further do you want to see the Liberty Theater deteriorate? And it's happening day by day. Every time when we got that rain last week, 4.5 inches, you can believe the deterioration was further developing. And that should be a concern for all of us. And so we have an opportunity here, and I hope that the council members will support this opportunity to save the Liberty Theater.
Well, let me say this so we'll be clear. There's no doubt of all the good that Representative Smiley has done. There's no doubt about his relationships around the city, the state, and the country, and possibly the world. There's no doubt that he can go out and get funding. That's no doubt. There's no doubt on that part. The part is, while that side is going on, there's just the question that needs to be answered is, if I had been able to get into the building between March 9th and April 28th, and there was some interest in the city working with the private investors, possibly the rooftop could have had a cover on it now just to stop the water until we could negotiate it. I mean, so as far as deterioration, that happens because the city hadn't made a decision and the private investors can't make a decision.
Well, Councilor Huff, I'm trying to find words to say, but the board of the Liberty Theater sent us a letter, and I know that the board took a vote, and so they've made a request, and we're dealing with a person who has been a doer and will continue to be a doer in this community. And I think that we can, if we partner with Calvin Smiley and the board, I think we can save the Liberty.
Okay, so at this point, it's just basically the board has made a decision. There's no entertainment of a private investor getting in, seeing the building. That's what's being said.
Well, that's a question that you've got to ask Representative Smiley.
That's been answered. He's answered already. So I just want to make sure I'm clear. He said that the board met, the board made a decision, and it was, you know, the board's not interested in entertaining anybody outside. I'm good.
This is Charmaine.
Councilor Crabb.
I'm not ready to approve this request until all avenues have been addressed. And if a private investor wants to look into this and possibly have a private investor invest in it versus the city, I'd like to go down that avenue first. I think that the city taking over the Liberty Theater can create financial issues for us, especially in this financially difficult time. And I'm just not ready for us to take that on, especially if we have private investors that are being held back from making a bid on this property. It is very common in real estate, on a commercial real estate deal, that private investors will remain anonymous until they're ready to reveal themselves. And sometimes that doesn't even happen until after the transaction is completed. And it's for multiple reasons. And so I don't think we should be first on the block. I think we should be the last on the block. I think if there's private investors there, we should give them the opportunity to make an offer.
Well, and I think that's, I mean, I understand exactly where Councilor Crabb's coming from. The only point I would make is that the city is not a party to this in these negotiations at all. It's a negotiation that takes place with the board of the Liberty. The city doesn't have any say-so in that. So we're kind of just waiting until all that is handled. Councilor House, do you have a question?
Well, as a native-born Columbus person, I certainly am extremely interested in the history of all aspects of Columbus. And I've been to the Liberty Theater to a number of events down there, contributed money to it, so I want it saved. And if you had asked me this question before the virus and we had to make a decision, I probably would have said, let's go get it. I am really worried right now where our finances are. I know there are grants, and I know that TAD money's there. A private investor also could use that TAD money. I guess any group probably could. But I am very uncomfortable right now with finances being so unknown, taking on $3 million of debt, or at least what we think will be $3 million of debt, and then running it, because if it was easy to find groups to come into the theater, I think they already would be there. And I know there have been some, because I've been there for some, but still not enough to make it viable. So I'm just real uneasy right now saying we're going to take it. And I just wonder if we don't have a little more time to look better and get a better understanding of where our finances really are.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Thomas. I have a number of questions, and I want to say right up front, I think the intent of everybody on this phone call and everybody that we have talked to is to save the Liberty Theater. The question is, how do we do that? How do we go about doing that? And I have a number of questions that mainly revolve around, quite frankly, the financing at the Liberty District. One of the first things that I would want to see is the theater's financial statement. Do they have any money? How much money do they have? What kind of funding do they have? I also want to know, the city manager said something about the taking on the liability of the theater has. How much is that? What kind of liability is it? Is it an ongoing liability? The issue that we have with putting this entity under the Civic Center, for example. The Civic Center gets 2% of the hotel motel tax to run its programs. Our hotel motel tax, we don't have any clue what this pandemic, what this current financial situation has done to our hotel motel tax, except we do know that 5 of the largest hotels in Columbus have closed and have been closed for a couple of weeks. And so there's no hotel motel tax or sales tax coming in. What kind of impact has that had on us? And I think the same thing goes with the grants that we're talking about, not only from the state of Georgia, but grants from any other entity. Those people who give those grants are in the same shape the city is. We don't have a clue except how much we are losing in this current financial situation, except that we do know we're losing money. One of the things that I would want to know is it's been said several times by several people tonight about the deterioration of the physical building. So what has the Liberty Theater board done to stop the deterioration of their property? I don't know. Nobody has been able to say that. And one of the things that I think we need to find out, and quite frankly, Clifton may be able to answer this, but I don't know that he will without some study, and that's what I'm looking for, is some study. Right now, the Liberty Theater is a 501c3 entity. That is, if I make a contribution to the Liberty Theater, I can take it off my income tax as a charitable contribution. If the city takes over the running of that facility, what happens to their 501c3 status? Do I still get to take it off? Is there some combination along the way? I've talked to about 3 people in the last couple of days who are very knowledgeable about 501c3 operations. I've gotten about 7 different answers from those 3 people. And so I would want some, and none of them are experts in the field. So that's, and there are a lot of those kinds of questions that I think we need to have some answers to before we take on this debt. I don't know, the $3 million, we've been told that that's to do some repairing, and it has not been mentioned, I believe, in all of those conversations about what that $3 million would do and what it would repair, is any repair on the theater portion itself, on the portion where the theater seats and the stage and all of that. It's been the roof, it's been the kitchen, it's been some of those other kinds of things that, granted, need to be repaired and replaced, but so does that theater portion. How much is that going to cost? And, you know, I'm a little concerned about the $3 million figure. I don't know what that entails. We have not seen any financial statement that says we're going to have to pay $1.5 million for the roof and $500,000 for the kitchen or whatever. It's just a $3 million. And in fact, we've not been told who gave us that figure. It was somebody that we've worked with. Okay, so who is that? the issue with the employees, are we going to put this, are we going to have current employees work the theater? If we are, I'm not sure where they'll get the time to do that. They have full-time jobs now. Are we going to hire employees in this economic situation, in this financial situation, where we do not know what's going to happen or how long this financial situation is going to hit us? And I just think that we need to slow down a little bit and get some answers. And I'm sure there are other questions out there from other people, but I just think we need to slow down. And I am not in favor of saying we're going to buy it and then we need to answer all these questions. I want I want it reversed. I want the questions answered that not only counselors have, but as Councilor Huff said, some of our citizens have. And then we can decide, is this something that the city wants to do? One of my fellow counselors was talking the other day about the relationship that we had with Port Columbus. We didn't take over the running of the the National Civil War Naval Museum, but we did help them with a money from the city. Have we looked into that? I don't know. And I'm not asking anybody to answer any of those questions tonight, because I want to see the documentation and where'd you get your figures? And I'm just very nervous about what we're being asked to do. I think that we have got to, somebody, and the city, as much as we can, has got to save the Liberty Theater. But I don't know that tonight I'm ready with enough answers to vote that we will take over the ownership of the theater. Does that mean, here's another question for you. If we say we're going to take over the ownership of the theater, does that mean we're going to take over the property and the building, but not the Liberty Theater Incorporated, the entity that runs the theater, that collects the money, that does the fundraiser? Is that included or not? I don't know. That's another question that is out there. There are just lots of them, and I think that we need to be much more careful about what we're doing, particularly in this financial climate. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else have a comment or a question?
Mayor, I do. This is Glenn. Look, I'm listening to everybody, and there's a lot of good points that have been made on both sides, and I think there's some options out there. I'm not convinced yet that what we're talking about is the only option. I think one of the things I just asked myself, how did we get to this point? I mean, really, what has happened with the Liberty Theater to get us to this point? Because it sounds like it's stressed so much that it just being pushed in the direction of the city, and it concerns me because that's titled basically described as an encumbrance, and at the same time it was an obligation. And I think about when you go to the Strong Cities website, it talks about how cities have gotten in trouble over the years and thinking that they have to go in and take over all these historic properties and get them right and get them up and get them running, and things happen only to find out that they just can't carry the cost of the operations, and then they wind up closing down, and the cities wind up struggling with some of them, struggling to meet the operations and the services of the city, and then only to border on the verge of bankruptcy. But I don't think we're in a position like that. I just, you know, I feel like we're going somewhat against our policy right now, and our policy is that we should have some concrete information on this. If the city is really looking at this as an option, I think there's so many questions that I have that I don't have time enough tonight to present it. And you know, I know the city manager talked earlier about funding and so forth, but I don't even think, I mean, all that flows through a budget. I don't even think the state has a budget right now. There's been no allocations of revenue or funding that has been presented or approved, and I don't know what has happened in the past, but I don't think they do carryovers at the state. So I'm not so sure that, you know, there are things that I want to make sure that if it is part of the plan, that we know that it's going to happen, and then we don't get stuck, or we're not put in a position where we get stuck and we got to carry the bill later. Those are things that I want to see a concrete plan. All I have right now is basically these two, a one-page document that just says the recommendation is to take it over, kind of like what the city manager said, and I really don't have anything. Our policy says that we need to have solid documents, concrete, that I can look at, that we would have a plan in place, not only short term, but long term, to understand this. I don't know why it's been determined by the Liberty Theater that the city needs to take it over, or why all of a sudden are we the only ones that can save the Liberty Theater? I don't understand that. I asked myself the question, why wasn't RFP looked at? Why wasn't this put out in the community? Why hasn't there been a capital campaign? Why hasn't there been efforts to facilitate and to keep this facility supported? I'm being told that it's distressed right now and it's falling apart, but how did it get to that point? How would the board let something get to that point of where we're at today? I mean, I don't know, but certainly I would like to understand. I'd really like to understand the market study. I'd like to see a market study of what we're talking about. I'd like to see a feasibility study. I'd like to see, like it was stated, both sides of the balance sheet, both revenue and expenditures. I want to see something in concrete before we just take something on. I think the options are there. There's a lot of options that are out there, and you know, everything's shut down right now. I mean, there's no events, there's no gatherings, there's nothing going on right now. I mean, I don't think that we should be in a hurry to all of a sudden just take something and take on those obligations. I don't know where we're going to be sitting at the end of the year, but I do want to make sure the Civic Center, the ice rink, the natatorium, all these other facilities, that we can support them before we take on another obligation. For that right now, but I do need to see that in a plan of how to move forward with that. I really would like to see the community step up and say, we want this, and we're dedicated. We're going to get behind it, and behind it, we're going to support it. We're going to go out there and raise money. If the city's going to commit, then they'll go out and raise money and somewhat get in the game on this. I haven't seen, you know, if you're telling me that it hasn't been supported. I mean, I don't know what's happening over there from an operations standpoint, and what all of a sudden, if the city takes it over, how come all of a sudden it's going to just thrive? I don't understand that. I need to really know how we're going to utilize this facility if we take it on. But, you know, I'm not against it. I just right now, I don't think the time that we've got, I think we've got time that we can continue to explore opportunities. You know, I would really like to see more of a detailed plan that's in line with our policy, how we're going to move forward on this. I don't want to somewhat, you know, don't tell me, show me. I need to see it. I would do that in my business. You know, any bank or financial institution, for they're going to take on and fund any efforts. They're going to want documentation. They're going to want information. So I think it's prudent in doing that. But look, I want to keep things going in our community as well, but we can't be the cure-all, solve-all in all these matters. And we really need to understand what direction we're going in and how we're going to handle this. And it's just not it's not a good time in the environment we're in to be really be promoting that we're going to take on a struggling situation. Because I can go down the list and tell you there's several nonprofits out there right now, several organizations that need help and need funding. Are we going to be there for everybody? Are we going to do that? Or are we just doing it for this? Are we going to be that for all the other organizations? So as soon as we start opening the door on that, it just leads to one, to the other, to the next. I just feel like we really need to have a better concrete plan of how we're going to move forward. And I want it in writing. I want people to step up and make those commitments. I just still feel like it's somewhat of in a position of speculation, and we don't have our hands around. We know everybody kind of feels like what, their position and what they want out of it, but we really don't have a clear understanding of how this is going to play out. And I that's what I question. I just don't know if we're ready to do this right now. And I do know we have time to continue to work through this. So that's kind of, my position on, without getting into too much detail. I'd like to see more commitments. I'd like to see more, I guess, I'd like to know that all those commitments and everything we are saying is viable, doable, and that we can make it happen. And I just don't think personally that I'm ready to do it today with this. I've heard twice about this. This is all I have. And I keep going back to why have we determined all of a sudden that we just need to take over this facility? And I still want to be able to understand the utilization of it, because I don't even know what kind of venue that we're trying to create. And then I do question a lot of the costs. I'd like to see some professional consultants and some evaluations on this to go in there, and that we can get the clear documents on what a needs assessment and what we're talking about, so we can get our hands around it. I think that's the right thing to do. I think it's the prudent thing to do. I think it's wise. And really, we don't have to do anything today, because the Civic Center shut down. Everything's shut down right now. There's no gatherings, events, meetings. And even if there are, you're going to have to be, I don't even know how it's going to work and play out when the doors open up. But I just don't see those things happening anytime soon. So I think we got time. I feel comfortable we got time to continue to work on this. And that would be, I'm not saying that I'm totally against it. I'm just saying that I need to, I think we need to have a better concrete plan in writing that we can really look at and evaluate, so we all know where we're at. We're on the same page, what direction we're heading.
Thanks, sir. Anybody else, any questions or comments?
Yes,
right.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I just want to say that I understand everyone's concern and everyone's questions. I think that everybody brought some good points, and there's some points that I didn't agree with, and some I did agree with. I understand Huff's concern, because I've been working with him, so I know exactly what it is. I see what Glenn is saying. I understand House. I understand everyone that's spoken. But I do want to say this, that we can't dictate what the board does and haven't done, why these things haven't come acceptable or not? Why is not the community behind the Liberty District? We can't answer those questions. That's not what we're here for today. What we were here for today was the building, was preserving the historical of the building. Their finances, what they done with money, they didn't do money. I don't think that's our place. I think that's the community, IRS, and everybody else's place, but ours. I think the decision was, well, did we want to preserve this building? Did we want to take over this building? And I think the city manager did an excellent job in outlining some funds, some directions. Representative Smari has agreed to help with the fundraising. And I know for a fact that when we want to get behind something, we find the means and we do it when we really want to. So I'm a little disappointed. I was hoping more that we can go ahead and answer the questions or get the information that we needed in order to go with the transfer of the building, because I had a question myself. If the nonprofit sold the property, who collects the money? And who will collect the money is whoever has the Liberty District LLC that will collect the money. And taxpayers' money has been placed in that property for, repairs and stuff in the future. So that's another, another concern. So maybe the board felt instead of selling the property and the funding going to the board, let it go to the city and do their portions. But since everyone seems to be uncomfortable, not ready to save the building as of today, maybe in the future, if it's not too late, I'm hoping that maybe we can get everybody's questions answered. We're not going to get everybody's 100% questions. I know that we're not going to probably agree all of it, but I'm going to, instead of keeping us on here for 2-3 hours debating it, with disappointment and all due respect to everyone, I'll ask the city manager to delay it. Let Representative Calvin Smari know that we attempted, we tried, but we were not successful. There was not enough votes to do it. There are questions that the board has to answer to my colleague. I don't know if the board is ever going to answer those questions. I don't know what's going to go there. But I do hope that it doesn't become a dead issue. I hope we're not going to wait 3 or 5 years. I hope that someone opens the door and let, the investor that Bruce has to go look at it. I hope that there are other people that will look at it. I just hope that we would save it. If it doesn't, well, it was wonderful. It was there. If the community is not doing a whole lot now, there's a reason for it. What is it? Maybe if we would have taken it over, there'll be more support. So I'm going to ask Councilor Barnes and Councilor Bell. It doesn't seem like we have the vote or the interest right now to go ahead and take over the building, but that there is interest in saving the building, and there are questions, and we just need to help whoever it does to answer all the questions to see if we can preserve history. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm just, okay, let's put it on delay indefinitely, and may God protect our community and the historical portion of it. It lays in the hands of that board to decide what it's going to do, because our government is not prepared to take over. And I'm very disappointed and sad about it, but it is what it is. We need 6 votes and we don't have the 6 votes.
Well, Councilor, let me make just a quick comment. I think the city manager did a great job of kind of laying out some questions and issues in very broad strokes. And then I think listening to some of the concerns of the council, which are reasonable questions. I think a delay might not be a bad idea. I have no idea how that's going to sit with the board and Mr. Smyrie, but I would think that if we did not just let it lie there, but went ahead and pursued some of the answers to some of these questions and get some of the information that would make the counselors feel a little bit better. I still think that for those of us that have watched and all of us have talked about the Liberty for years and years and years, nothing ever really matured in that spot. And it was just very difficult as a standalone facility with no supporting infrastructure around it. So I think that, again, the city manager did a great job of outlining some of the primary concerns, and then we heard some more. So yeah, maybe the correct action from here, guys, is to let's have a work session on it. Let's talk about those issues, and then let's get them to the board, and we'll see where it goes. The board will decide if they want to answer them and pursue it, or if they want to take on another option.
I agree, and I'm not sure, who's going to pay for that consultant, go in there and do the estimate. I'm not sure, but what I would say is that I'm open to whatever. I'm just disappointed. That's just the bottom line. And I hope that we can get something eventually going, or whoever does it can be able to save the Liberty. That's it. But I know for a fact, no one can say that I have not fought for that area. I have tried everything I can.
Well, Mr. Mayor, and to all the members of council, thank you for your engagement. I think we've talked about this for a while, and certainly I'll just delay it. And I will say to you that I am not going to ask staff to do any work. We'll wait to see if Councilor Huff and his private investors can pull it off. It wouldn't make sense for me to have staff do work if he can pull off a private sector. If he and the board can agree that the private sector is the way to go and he can pull it off, we don't want to waste our time and energy doing any work. So we'll just delay it until further notice, Mayor and Council. And if Councilor Huff determined that his private sector investors, they don't work out and he wants to come back and make another shot at trying to get council to buy in, we'll be happy to go out and engage work at that time. But there's no need to engage in work that that will sit on a ship. And so I'm going to go ahead and delay it, Mayor and Council, and then I'm going to move to my next item on the agenda.
I think that's good.
Councilor Huff, I need to make a comment. I'll do all I can to access the board and get into the facility. I can get a lot of answers if I ever get inside the facility, because the number one point from the citizens that I spoke with today was that the history reflects, I think, that William H. Spencer gave the property, donated the property to the citizens of Columbus, Georgia, and that it was supposed to pass from board to board to board to board, but never to be, to the point that it was ever taken away from the citizens. So we'll see where it goes. I'll do the best I can to get in. And then once I get in, I'll give you answer all of the questions. Thank you.
Well, and I'll just say, Councilor Huff, I look forward to that. And I've said before, more than once, I hope that I can see something in my lifetime. Because every time we think we've got, we're making a step or two forward, we make 5 or 6 back, so hopefully in my lifetime, we'll see some progress in the Liberty district. And I've said to council members, and I'll just take a moment to say this, when I came back in 1984, downtown was downtown and uptown, and at 5 o'clock, they put the signal lights on blink. And I look at uptown today, and I look at the TAD that we have down there, and I look at what W.C. Bradley is doing, the 3 different hotels going on with rooftop bar, and just all the development. And then on the north of Teases, we've got development, City Village is developed. You go to the north side of Veterans, it's developed. Panhandle is developed and you swing back down, and we're about to do an interchange on Casino Road. And, you know, we Spencer High School, $60 million, and that area is developing. Midtown's blowing up and everything's going on. And then I drive to work every day through the Liberty District, and with buildings falling in and no development. And I know that Columbus can do better than that for the Liberty District. But all around Columbus, they're happening. But in the Liberty District, we cannot make progress. And I don't understand why we cannot make progress. And I hope that I can see some progress in the Liberty District in my lifetime.
You will see it in your lifetime, because we have public-private partnerships going on around Columbus, and we are hoping to have public-private partnerships. In the past, we've hoped for that in the Liberty, but you had other things going on. And like I say, it's a group in 2020, and people are interested in trying to get things done, and it can happen in your lifetime and possibly happen, you know, before the mayor has to run for another election, if we had a chance to get in and look at it. Thank you.
That would be awesome.
I have a protocol question. This is up for a vote. So if we were going to delay it, doesn't somebody have to make an emotion and have it seconded?
Well, there again, I can let someone else respond to that, Councilor Crabb, but, you know, I often delay things on my agenda, but that's up to mayor and the council as to whether.
I don't think there was ever a motion or a second. So I think you can just pull it administratively and bring it back after some of the questions are answered. I defer to the city attorney on that, though.
Yeah,
I requested it
that
for
has
it to
been
be
done.
delayed.
Councilor Crabb, that's been done in the past. Things have been pulled or delayed on the city manager's agenda administratively, so that's perfectly appropriate.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I may, you know, we're talking, I just want to make this, we're talking about a 501c3, a nonprofit organization, and they're subject to guidelines and bylaws. Okay, so, you know, I asked a question about, has the board ever made a attempt to do an RFP out in the community? I don't know that, but I don't think people can just go in and start looking at all this stuff without some decisions being made. One of the things today that I kind of realize, if I'm going to analyze taking over a distressed property, or I'm going to buy a business or a building or anything, I mean, I'm going to look at all the documents on file. One of the things that I would like to see is the records on file. I mean, if we're really serious about this, I'd like to see all the documentation that's on file over the years so I can kind of understand it better. I'd like to see the contribution list. I'd like to see the revenue expenditure list. I would like to see how this facility has been utilized in the past. That's one of the things I talked about. That's basically a market study, or just trying to understand a little bit more of how the facility operates, because I think that helps us understand a little bit better. I don't have that, but I sure would like to get it.
It's delayed. So if you have a question on specific things, yeah, get them to the city manager. We'll try to get those answered while it's delayed.
Well, I don't think we may have delayed it, but I have a feeling that it's going to be coming back in the future. So while I have this opportunity, maybe we can these things. I guess I'm trying to get what I need as a council representative to make and that's kind of what I'm saying here. But I would think that if an entity needs to go look at it, or anybody else that's interested, wouldn't the board have to approve it to be an RFP to go out to be sold to the private sector, or to work an agreement in the private sector?
I already delayed it because of everything that's going on. And if Clifton, if I'm not mistaken, if a council member puts something on the agenda, sometimes we vote on it, and sometimes we respect that councilor's request. And I made a request for it to be delayed indefinite until whatever all these information can be done, or the board decides what it's going to be done. And I don't,
It can It can be
So-
delayed administratively.
Right, and I
Well,
just did that so we can limit the conversation, so we can finish the agenda, because we're not gonna come to no conclusion.
Well,
And any questions or anything needs to go to the city manager. And I don't know if he'll take on of it. You probably council members or constituents out there need to go straight to the board and ask them. I don't know if that's the answer.
And I just want to be clear, Mayor and Council, I will not be bringing it back as city manager. And I said that the last time. If someone wants it to come back on my agenda, it will have to be that the mayor or a council member or council members request that it be brought back on the city manager's agenda. I will not be putting it on my agenda under my own initiative. I will not be doing that. So, and again, I don't want to ask my staff to go out and do all of this work if a private company, investors are going to take over, and we will have done that work for no good reason. And so we will wait until Councilor Huff and his investors make a decision. And then if they can't come to a decision and Councilor Huff or any other council member wants it to come back, they can request that it be brought back and I'll bring it back. But I will not initiate anything with it. So that's where I'm leaving it at this time. So I'm going to go on to item number 2, Mayor and Council, on my agenda. And it's a donation and non-cash match grant related to COVID-19. Individuals and organizations have contacted the city interested in donating for various public safety and general government employee related needs in relation to COVID-19. And this will be an avenue to accept those generous donations that people want to do for public safety and general government employees. There's no financial obligation on the part of the city, and we're asking your approval.
This is Charmaine Crabb. I make a motion to approve.
Walker, second.
All right.
Hey,
we've got a
Mr. City Manager, this is
Yeah.
Councilor Thomas. When, I'm sure this is going to pass unanimously, and I'm glad it is, and would you bring back to us at some point in the future a list of these folks that do this so that we can do the appropriate thank you to them for taking this on in this climate? I know that there are a number of these folks that are doing wonderful things throughout the community to help our public safety and our general government folks. And we're going to need to be able to say thanks to these folks. So would you bring that back to us in hopefully a couple of weeks? This won't last long.
Councilor Thomas, I absolutely agree with that. So we'll certainly do that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, there's a motion second. Does any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any counselor not in favor of item 2? All right, it passes.
Mayor, I've got a street acceptance, Ponder Drive. Streets have been improved and meet the requirements of our engineering department. So I'm asking your
Charmaine
approval.
Crabb, I make a motion to approve.
House second.
Allen, second.
All right, motion by Councilor Crabb, seconded by Councilor House for street acceptance. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any counselor opposed to the street acceptance? All right, passes unanimously.
Mayor, I've got Solicitor General's office, their FY20 other local option sales tax. They want to reallocate $6,600 of the $13,000 that was awarded. They've got a balance of $10,755 remaining, and we're asking your approval.
Move approval.
House second.
All right, there's a motion by Councilor Woodson, second by Councilor House. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any counselor opposed? It passes.
I've got some purchases, Mayor. I've got a portable toilet rental and service on an as-needed basis. It's $4,677. We're asking for your approval.
Counselor Thompson, move to approve.
Second.
All right, there's a motion by Councilor Thompson, second by Councilor Woodson for item A. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any counselor opposed? It passes.
I've got maintenance services for security locking system, door hinges for the Muskogee County Jail. It's $13,200. And we're asking your approval.
House move approval items B through G.
Second. Second by Woodson.
All right, there's a motion by Councilor House to approve the remainder of the purchases, and second by Councilor Woodson. Any discussion or anybody want any of these pulled?
I'd like to pull item C.
Okay,
Just have a question or comment, I guess.
all right, we've got a motion and a second on B, and then B through G.
Mr. Mayor, I think if the city manager or somebody might be able to answer my question, we can do C along with all of the rest of them.
Well, let's give that a shot. What's your question?
The list on your agenda, Mr. City Manager, of the things that are being bought, these are holsters and those kinds of things for all of our law enforcement agencies. And I have been approached by a number of our police officers and a couple of the sheriff's deputies about their current equipment and how uncomfortable it is and how it gives you a bad back and all those other kinds of things. The things that are listed on this, if, for example, you want to buy a belt, an equipment belt, this doesn't limit the kind of belt you can buy as long as you stay in this price range. Is that right?
I believe that is correct, Councilor
Does
Thomas.
that make sense to you, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, because I've had a number of people say to me, we could probably save some money on our workers' comp if we had some different types of belts and equipment and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I just am hoping that our law enforcement folks who are going to be buying this equipment will look into some of the newer pieces of equipment that might be a little more comfortable for our law enforcement agencies. So with that, Mr. Mayor, include C in the list.
All right, we've got a motion, a second on B through G. Any other questions or discussion? Say aye.
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 Thanks.
Any council who opposes any of those purchases? Mr. City Manager, if you would walk through them very quickly.
Yes, sir. So item B, maintenance services for security locking systems, door hinges at the Muskogee County Jail is B. C, leather items on an as-needed basis for all of the public safety agencies. Item D, breathing apparatus for fire EMS department. E is heating and refrigeration supplies on an as-needed basis for our public works department as they deal with our buildings. F is transit enhancements having to do with things from benches to other items for our transit system. G, dumpster roll-off container rental and servicing on an as-needed basis. And those are the purchase items, Mayor and Council. Next, I've got one update on my agenda from the Board of Tax Assessors, Assessor's Office. Suzanne Whitehouse is on the call with us, and I'm going to ask that she would unmute her mic and talk to us about what's going on in the Tax Assessor's Office.
Thank you, Mr. Hughley. Appreciate it.
Yes.
So I'm waiting for, there we go. Thank you, Jeremy. So I wanted to give a little bit of an update. We ended up heading out into isolation for 2 weeks and basically went to telework mode on 5 hours of notice. We had some real lessons learned in that, and that we had not tested our emergency plan prior to that. This COVID-19 was a whole different ball of wax than anything we'd ever planned on. So we got it done. I have to give a couple of shouts out first before I go through my list here. I have to shout out to my admin, Michelle Reynolds, who got everybody on board and out the door within that 5 hours. And I know Forrest is on the line, and I just want to shout out to some of Forrest's people. Jeremy Miles got us all of our VPNs, our sign-ons, and our remote access. And Drew Hopkins took care of our phones and made sure that we had division lines that we didn't previously have, that we had everything forwarding. It was quite the endeavor, but we managed to keep it going. Some of the wins were the fact that we did get out into remote work and on 5 hours of notice, and we continued to work through our 2 weeks of mandatory isolation. So we continued to serve the taxpayers, even though it was non-traditional means. We did get that done for them. Social distancing, I am going to be an advocate for it. It works. We were already practicing social distancing within the office when we had an individual test positive, and our employees took advantage of Mercy Med's testing up at Cascade Hills, and no other employee tested positive in our office. So our social distancing practices did in fact work. And despite moving to telework, personal property is still on time and on target. Their personal property notices of assessment are going to be mailed out on time. They will go out on the 15th of May. And while this whole COVID thing was going on, we managed to organize a donation drive that involved the entire city, contributing items, and we donated 238 gift bags of essential services, essential needs through direct services to some of our homebound seniors here in the community. So those were some of the wins this year's digest preparations. Some of our losses is that we lost some manpower in moving to shut down. We did not have enough equipment, mobile equipment for all of our employees to work. We had suffered some connectivity challenges out there about teleworking, and we ended up having to suspend all of our field work when we went into isolation. So Jeremy, if you'll flip to the next slide for me, I'd appreciate that. So here's our new revised timeline. The dates in black, those were the ones we were aiming for, and the dates in red are where we are now. So despite the change on that first one of Monday from April 20th to May 11th for the personal property, that is not going to impact them actually mailing notices out. So they will still be able to get that digest approved, and notices for personal property are still going to mail out on the 15th of May. The approval by the Board of Assessors for the digest, for the real property digest, and for homestead exemptions, instead of taking place on the 20th of April, is going to take place now on the 18th of May. That will get those notices in the mail by the 29th of May. That's the deadline that we're aiming for right now, is the 29th of May. What that means for the digest and tax billing and all of that is that we've now extended, we're going to end up extending the appeal period from the 29th of June cutoff to the 13th of July cutoff. And that means that we will not be able to certify appeals to the tax commissioner until the 20th of July, which means she will not be able to take that digest up to Atlanta for our collection order until after the 20th of July. Now, when you compare that to 2019's deadline dates that we accomplished it by, you'll notice that's really 5 days later. So despite the 2 weeks of lost time and the challenges that we faced in some of those deadlines, we are only 5 days later than we were last year. I won't talk to any of the other issues further down that list. Those belong to Ms. Huff, and she would have to address those dates. But we're looking to get the final document that she needs to her on the 20th of July so that she can head to Atlanta for the collection order. So keeping our fingers crossed that Atlanta cooperates, potential for August 1st still for billing, but it may have to be delayed. And that will have to come from her, a request from her for that to happen. Next slide, Jeremy, please. So I know everybody's wondering what's going on with our tax digest for this year. We are not making any major changes to the digest for 2020. We expect the overall numbers to be flat. There is going to be the slight delay in sending out the notices of assessment. The governor changed the deadlines for the conservation use in the Forest Land Protection Act, but those should have very little impact to us here in Muskogee County, and they will not have any delay in actually processing the digest for us. So don't expect any big changes. We're not going to make any. We're going to leave it flat. Times are too uncertain. And for 2021, we're already starting to watch conditions now because, of course, we're past January 1st of 2020. So now we're starting to watch things for 2021. And we're watching the market conditions very, very carefully. So far, all we've seen is a small decrease in the absorption rate on the real estate side of the house. We've seen a little bit of a reduction in the overall number of listings on a year over year. Prices are currently remaining stable, and we actually don't really expect those to change. We expect prices to remain stable. This is a little different from our perspective than the recession in that we don't expect to see the foreclosures that we saw in the recession forcing those prices down because of a glut of foreclosures on the market. So we're expecting right now prices to remain stable. That's what they're doing. It's still early game. I mean, we're only 60 days into this, really, when you consider what COVID-19 has done as far as shutting down and distancing and all of that. We are fully prepared to respond as the conditions dictate. And, right now it's just we're playing a wait and see game, but this is sort of our expectation. And I've talked to some of my fellow chiefs out there in some of our other counties, and we're all pretty much in agreement that this is really where we are at the moment. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer anything I can.
Suzanne, I just want to say y'all do such a great job, and in the midst of all this upheaval that you guys were put through, I really have to commend you for what you and your group did in helping some of the citizens of our community, the shut-ins and the seniors that are at such great risk for this virus, and the way y'all stepped up. We're all so proud of what y'all did, and you really reflected well on not only Columbus, but on the consolidated government. So thank you for your leadership.
My pleasure. We enjoyed doing it. It was a bright spot in a tough time. So.
Well, tax assessor, thank you so much. And if there are no other questions, Mayor, that concludes my agenda.
Suzanne.
Mr. City Manager.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I am continuing to get a lot of questions about the waste pickup and the different kinds of waste and so forth. Would you go through, the difference between the yard waste and the regular house and the recycling and all that, and where we are right now in picking up that waste?
Okay, I'm going to yield to Deputy City Manager Goodwin. I believe you are on the call, Deputy City Manager Goodwin.
Yes, sir, Mr. City Manager and Councilor Thomas. On yesterday, we started with the pickup of the residential yard waste. For the last 2 weeks, we were picking up just the storm debris from the storms that we had. And so people were able to put their limbs and the debris out on the right of way. We would pick that up. But it wasn't until yesterday, the 27th, that we actually started picking back up with the yard debris. We are, of course, still continuing to not pick up recyclables. So we're no longer picking that up. So what you are able to do is to commingle your recyclables into your household trash.
Or hold your recyclables.
Or you can hold. Yes, you can either hold them or, of course, just commingle them. Either way. And then, of course, once we get to the point where we're able to provide some the social distancing, we're able to go back into the recycle center so that our employees and the inmates can kind of work together, because typically in that place we have about 50 people that are working, which includes inmates and our employees. And so that's why we were not able to continue the recycling efforts. So we're picking up, of course, household, we're picking up the yard waste, and we are holding off on picking up recyclables at this point in the bulky waste.
And Ms. Goodwin, one of the questions that I had was, people said they had put out what they considered storm damage waste, and it was not picked up because they had put it in a garbage can. And you could see that it was, limbs and that sort of thing, leaves. But we only sent the grab all, right?
That's correct.
So that if the grab all couldn't get to it, it wasn't picked up. But if they put it out this week, when we start our regular yard waste pickup, will it be picked up?
It will be picked up. That's absolutely correct. Okay. We only sent the grab alls out the last 2 weeks to pick up the heavies. This week started on yesterday. Starting yesterday, it's the regular residential yard waste.
I think there was some confusion with some folks about the grab all is the one that was picking up the storm waste.
Okay, understand. Yeah. But yes, this week we start back again with the residential yard waste. That's correct.
And because we have right now stopped the recycling does not mean that we have stopped recycling, that we're not ever going to do it again.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
That was another concern.
Yes, just got to get past this pandemic. That's it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Lisa?
Yes.
Until what time were you going to pick up the debris from the storm? Was there a time length? I don't remember.
It was the last 2 weeks. Okay. So for the last 2 weeks, that's exactly what we were doing, picking up the storm debris. And again, this week. And so again, even though we're starting with yard waste this week, we are still going back. We're going to be picking all of that up. It's all going to be picked up. Yes.
Oh, so the storm weather debris is still going to be picked up, correct?
That's correct. It's still going to be picked up. That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Absolutely.
City Manager, I have a question about, I'm getting a lot of telephone calls about the golf courses and the parks.
Yes.
Being closed and when they might be opened again.
Okay, I'm going to ask the mayor, if you don't mind, about the golf course.
That's fine. The parks have never been closed. Our parks haven't. The sheriff's department actually closed the gate like at Flat Rock because they closed it to vehicle access because it was creating a lot of large gatherings. So the parks have always been open for pedestrian traffic, for people wanting to walk the trails and do some of those types of things. The golf course will be open on May 1st. under some very strict guidelines. The other private golf courses have been open all along, but we felt like as long as the governor's shelter-in-place order was in effect through April 30th, we were not going to open. But I've spoken with the golf course superintendent out there. They're going to have it ready to go Friday. But they're taking precautions. They're picking up the rakes so nobody touches the rake twice. Even the pins, instead of having the ball go in a cup, there'll be a foam insert so nobody picks the pins up. No food service except on the beverage cart that's riding around the courses. There'll be one person per golf cart. So there won't be anybody riding together unless they cohabitate, husband and wife, or father, son, or mother, daughter. They can ride together. And then they're only going to allow 3 people in the clubhouse at a time to pay. And they've got some very extensive conditions that have been developed by the state golf course superintendent. So they will be up and running all 3 courses under those conditions on Friday.
Okay, I do have a concern about them closing the gates especially in Heath Park and Flat Rock, because I don't know if anybody's driven by there, but there's like 20 cars parked along that road leading into Flat Rock Park, and it's creating an issue there just by closing the gates. And so something might want to be reconsidered there.
We can reopen those. I don't think that'd be a problem. I think the effort while the shelter-in-place order was in effect was to do everything we could to discourage large close gatherings, and that was happening at a very frequent rate at those particular locations. So I'll speak to the sheriff and we'll get those opened back up.
Okay, also Heath Park, because they're going through, there's 2 houses right there by that gate. They can't get through one of them because there's a hedge there, but they're just trespassing right through the other person's, and they're taking bikes, they're taking motorcycles through this person's yard.
Gotcha. We'll get it checked out. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, Mayor, if there are no other questions, that concludes my agenda.
All right. Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
What we're telling folks is that services are back in order, except for recycling, bulky items, that kind of stuff. But as far as right-of-way cuttings, any other 311 call that might go out that is a request by a citizen, all public services they're there and they're operating, and we're going to do things as we usually do by schedule, right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good deal. And I've got to commend our staff too, all of the employees, because during this period, a lot of them have been working remotely and from home. And we really, with the exception of some of the decisions that were made with waste pickup, we really haven't skipped a beat in terms of serving the public. 311 has been performing admirably, and I think by and large, we've been doing a pretty good job of trying to get the issues taken care of. So I commend staff for taking care of that. All right. Any other questions of the city manager?
I agree 100% about how the city has been run during this situation. If yard waste, golf courses, and entrances into parks are the #1 concerns, then I think we did pretty good.
Well, I think the leadership, the city manager, deputy city managers, and everybody that drives a truck and goes and takes care of things, they've been the heroes. So thank you for saying that, Councilor Crabb. All right, Madam Clerk, your agenda.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. For the clerk's agenda, item 1 is a resolution to cancel the May 5th, 2020 monthly proclamation session.
Ellen moves approval.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for the city attorney. we, according to the finance director, we're gonna have a budget meeting on that day. We sometimes take action at those budget meetings. Will this eliminate that possibility? If we say we're canceling this meeting, we won't
This
have
is
a
a
regular.
proclamation meeting.
The proclamation meeting is not a meeting. Many times we have just 2 or 3 people show up.
Yeah, I understand that, but we, according to the finance director, we're gonna have a budget meeting, review meeting that day, and we sometimes.
You're right. And I think in the past,
those meetings?
right. I think in the past, we've even had budget review meetings with no meeting at all. And I don't think we actually called the meeting budget review.
I just don't want us to get into trouble by canceling the meeting. I know that we're gonna cancel the proclamation portion of the meeting, but I just, because we're connecting it to the budget, I just don't want us to have a problem with that.
Well, normally the budget chair would call the budget meetings and set the schedule. So if you sign off along with Ms. Alexander on the schedule and that's distributed to everybody, that will be
Okay,
the call for
I just
those
want to be
meetings.
sure.
All right.
Thank you. All right, so we've got a motion and a second to approve canceling just the proclamation piece. Any other discussion or question? All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, is there any counselor opposed to that resolution? None, unanimously.
Next, Mayor, we have a resolution to receive the report of the Director of Finance concerning certain alcoholic beverage licenses for the month of March 2020.
Move be received.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve that resolution from the Director of Finance. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any counselor opposed to that resolution? It passes unanimously.
Item 3 is the copy of an official appointment form from New Horizons Behavioral Health, the Community Service Board, appointing Nancy Schroeder to serve another term of office. Needs council's confirmation.
Move confirmation.
Second.
Motion second to confirm. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any counselor opposed? That's approved.
Item 4, we received a memorandum from the Medical Center Hospital Authority advising that Carol Rutland is unable to continue her service. The following names are being submitted to fill this unexpired term: Ms. Brenda Doremus, Mr. Murray Solomon, and Mr. Tracy Sayers. Councilor Thomas is nominating all 3 for this seat. Council would just need to move that this list be sent to the Medical Center Hospital Authority.
So moved.
Second.
All right, there's a motion second to approve the list. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any counselor opposed? That's approved.
Item 5 are minutes of various boards to be received.
Move to be received.
Second.
Motion second to receive the minutes. Any discussion or any amendments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any counselor opposed? It's approved.
Next, we have board appointments. We have a council appointment that is ready for confirmation for the Columbus Golf Course Authority. Mr. Richard Mahone was nominated to serve another term of office. And
So moved by Councilor Huff.
Second.
Motion and a second to confirm Mr. Mahone. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any counselor opposed? He's confirmed.
next, we have council district seat appointments. Any nominations may be confirmed for this meeting. The Keep Columbus Beautiful Commission, we have the seat of Vanessa Lewis, who is interested in serving another term of office. This is Council District 1, Councilor Barnes. interested in serving another term if you wanted to reappoint
Yes,
her.
I want to reappoint her.
Second.
She may be
I
confirmed.
want,
So moved.
okay.
Move
All right, so it's the
confirmation.
motion and second.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, can we say who made the motion in the second?
I made the confirmation.
Okay, who made the second?
Alan
I
will
thought I
second.
did.
Councilor Barnes make the second. Thank you so much.
Since it's his appointment, all in favor of approving Ms. Lewis for another term, say aye.
Aye.
Any councilor opposed? She's confirmed.
Next, we have Dominique Williamson. She is also interested in serving another term. This is Council District 9. This is Councilor Thomas.
Ms. Davis, I move to nominate Ms. Williamson.
Move confirmation.
Second.
Motion second to confirm Ms. Williamson. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any councilor opposed? She's confirmed.
Next, we have Jason Rios. He does not desire reappointment. This is the Council District 10, Councilor House. You were nominated.
Doug McLeod.
Yes. Councilor House is nominating Doug McLeod for this seat, and he
Move
may.
confirmation. I second it.
Motion and a second to confirm Mr. McLeod. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any councilor opposed? He's confirmed.
And lastly, we have Warren Wagner. He has resigned. This is the Council District 5 nominee. Next, we have any nominations will be listed for the next meeting. For the Board of Family and Children's Services, we have Palua, and she is interested in serving another term of office if a member of council wanted to renominate her.
I'll renominate her.
I do. I want to renominate her.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll list Council Barnes as making that nomination. For the Columbus Aquatic Commission, we have the seat of David Helmick, Bruce Samuels, and John P. Steed. They are all interested in serving another term, as well as Barbara Cummings. If a member of council wanted to make that nomination for all.
I nominate all.
Second.
Councilor Crabb.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And we will bring these back for confirmation at the next meeting. We also have the seat of Wes Kelly. This is the Columbus Hurricane representative, and we will bring that back once we make contact and receive a nominee from this association. We also have one vacant seat, and Council Barnes is nominating Dr. Janet C. Bussey for this vacant seat. And we will bring that back for confirmation. Thank you, Council Barnes.
Thank
We will
you.
bring that. I'm sorry.
No, thank you, Sandra. I just want to see, we have no representation by a senior citizen. And she had served on that board admirably before. And so I appreciate you bringing that back up.
Thank you. We will bring that back at the next meeting for confirmation. For the Columbus Golf Course Authority, we have the seat of Richard Wright and James B. Houston. Both are interested in serving another term. Council Crabb is nominating Mr. Tommy Nobles for the seat of Richard Wright. And Councilor Thomas is renominating James Houston Jr. to serve another term of office. Any further nominations? And we'll bring that back for confirmation at the next meeting. For some, we do have one vacant seat that's open for nomination. Once again, for Keep Columbus Beautiful Commission, the at-large members, we have Sharon Baker and Kenneth Lures. Both are interested in serving another term of office. If a member of council wants to make that nomination.
Alan will nominate him.
I heard Councilor Huff make that nomination for those two. We also have the seat of Larry Derby, Ashley Lee, and Courtney Laughlin. These three are not interested in serving another term of office, and the seats are open for nominations. The Region 6 Regional Advisory Council, we have the seat of Annie Davis and Cynthia Smith. Both are interested in serving another term of office.
Councilor Huff, move for nomination. Move to confirm.
Thank you. Bring these two back for confirmation at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
For the Retirees Health Benefits Committee, we have the seats of Jack D. Kingsman and Lester Massey. Neither are eligible to serve another term of office, and these seats are open for nominations. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Any questions or any comments for the clerk? All right, and I know we've got a couple of topics for executive session. Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, sir, Mayor. I need that for discussion of real estate acquisition and disposal, litigation, and personnel.
Okay. And for the public who are streaming this or watching it on CCG TV, council will log out and then be back to announce any action taken, if any, in the executive session to close the regular meeting. All right, so I need a motion to go into executive session.
House so moved.
We go into executive session. This
All
is
right,
not very-
motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? See y'all shortly.
Okay, how do you close it out?
+17064420249 is now exiting.
acquisition and disposal, litigation, and personnel. No votes were taken. Unless there's any further business to come before the council, I'll entertain them. Yes, sir.
Mayor, we
Oh, yes,
need
you
to
did.
call up these resolutions.
Yep.
Is that all right?
I'm sorry, I'm jumping again.
Okay, I'm gonna call up, an add-on resolution. This is to settle all claims of Officer Teddy Jackson, workers' compensation for $110,000. That resolution is ready for adoption.
Move approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Motion second to approve the resolution. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any counselor opposed? It passes.
Okay, that passes. And one more, Mayor. This add-on resolution is the settlement of all claims of Rufus Morris, civil action, State Court of Muskogee County for $50,000, including attorney's fees. It's ready for adoption.
Move approval.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any counselors opposed? All right, that passes.
All right, that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Anybody have anything else that needs to come before the council?
We adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any counselor opposed? We are adjourned.